Welcome back. So the title of this mini lecture is Running, a short history. Now, I'm smiling a bit, partly because I got into running a number of years ago, and I've had a sort of on again, off again relationship with it. I've run marathons and sort of that kind of thing. So I'll just sort of check my biases or my pridefulness about it there. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about five terms that, as you read more about this, as you come to know more about kind of the arc of running culture within American life, you're going to see that it's a part of understanding the kind of American sports history landscape. So let's get into it. All right. So the first thing for us to be mindful of is the marathon. Okay, the marathon. Now, the marathon, as it's currently constructed, is a long form distance race that is 26.2 miles. Now, that as a distance is something that has established itself really with the reintroduction of the race with the more modern Olympics. So you're looking at just over 100 years ago where this distance kind of would have been set down. And it really is only in the last 50 years that you've started to see major cities, and then only in the last 20 to 30 years that you've started to see other communities become more active in sponsoring marathons and in some cases half marathons, really catering to philanthropists and tourists, and others who want to go and experience spaces and places through the space or through the platform of running. I mention philanthropists because you have many individuals that and races that are often tied to fundraising for different efforts and charities and this kind of thing. The Boston Marathon, again, in particular, is perhaps the leading one. Part of this has to do with the qualifications. Part of this has to get in. Part of this has to do with the age of the marathon. But it's incredibly central, really, to understanding the kind of arc of running culture within American life. The second point for us is going to be Jesse Owens. Now, Jesse Owens was an incredibly significant runner and track athlete in the 1930s, who wins a number of events in the 1936 Olympic Games. And his efforts, as well as those of Jim Thorpe before him, do, of course, establish that there has been a running culture. There has been a track culture in more broadly in the U.S., but I know that it's one that we don't tend to, in public professionalism, perhaps emphasize as much, that it might exist more so on the margins. But if we look more closely to kind of local communities and this kind of thing, right, the culture of running or the culture of going out for a jog, right, is kind of central to parts of health and wellness efforts really across aspects of American life. This leads us to our another point, or our next point. So our third point is Kay Switzer, or Catherine Switzer. So she's the first woman to enter the Boston Marathon. And Catherine Switzer was a student at Syracuse University who enters the marathon and finds herself under attack from the race director as the marathon is ongoing, but is able to finish the marathon and is really, I think, an incredibly powerful person, an important story in terms of understanding, kind of where discussions of athleticism and sport and aspects of gender, kind of are or were ongoing in America at that time, and of course since. So what happened to her in those efforts, is a part of that process and is one that we should understand. Another term for us, or another important pertinent for us, is or Steve Prefontaine. So Steve Prefontaine was a distance runner who died in his early 20s in the early 1970s out of Oregon. And Prefontaine was part of kind of this early boom, this early growth of running and running culture in American life in the early 1970s. And this is something that's going to extend really kind of throughout the 70s. This is an era in which you're going to see kind of the growth again of this running culture and running communities. It's really out of this era that brings us to our next term, which is Runner's World Magazine. I recognize that when it comes to forms of media, that usually when it comes to sport, if we're looking at the arc of the last 50 to 60 years, certainly something like Sports Illustrated is an important piece, in its own way. And that is very much true. But we need to make sure that we also acknowledge that Runner's World Magazine and some of these other magazines, for the running culture and running community, much like other outlets for other athletic communities, has been an important part of, in its own way, providing a space for runners to kind of engage within a running culture and community. Because it's not necessarily a team sport, it's often a very highly individualized one, and so this offers a lot for individuals to engage with, kind of a tactile way for folks to engage with. Our final point is going to be Roger Bannister. So Roger Bannister is important because he breaks the 4-minute mile. And this happens in 1954. Now, this isn't in the US, but the point in mentioning it is to highlight the idea that really, again, in the arc of the post-World War II landscape, right, running cultures are important. They're a critical part of understanding sport and sports history. And in the US especially, beginning in the 60s and 70s, you're going to see, again, this growth of running and this interest in running, which has continued all the way to this day. Thank you very much.